Yeah, well, sharing information is the first step, and it's not that hard to do. We just have to have a Biden administration that's willing to do that. As you know, I, along with a bunch of other Republican governors back in September, called on the Biden administration to tell us, who are these folks that are coming across the border?
Right.
Where are you sending them? Have any of them committed crimes? And I think we can, I know we stand ready as a state. I know most local governments do too, to cooperate with ICE and any federal agency on who these people are. But the problem is we now have, whatever the number is, 7.5, 8.5, 9 million people that are in our country illegal. And it is just a nightmare right now. The way to start fixing this problem is to secure the border. It's my understanding the president's going down there. I'm glad he is, but I'm sure it's, I don't think, I've heard he's not going to take any action, which to me and a lot of American people, that's insane.
He's not this week, we don't think, but maybe there'll be something in the State of the Union. If he was to take executive action specifically, what would you like to see him do?
Well, I think just go back to policies that work. I mean, well over a year ago, a group of Republican governors were at the border saying, implement policies that we know that works. We sent a letter that had 10 detailed things out, remain in Mexico, start building the wall again, call up National Guard. I mean, look, I stand ready to send Georgia National Guard. I know a lot of other governors do. We've done that before. We've had a continuous presence down there since 2019. The difference is, before the Biden administration, you had a president and an administration that wanted to work with the governors to stop the flow of illegal immigration, and this administration did not. I mean, you saw the clips over the last couple of days with people rerunning the vice president, the president, the press secretary saying, hey, the border secure, the Homeland Security Secretary saying the border's secure. Well, the American people know it is not secure. The governors know it's not secure. That's why Greg Abbott's having to act like he is, and people like me are trying to help him.
Now, there was a local Democrat down in Georgia who was quoted as saying something to the effect that if people bring up things like this on border security, they should take it up with Donald Trump because it was the Republicans who, killed that border security bill, the compromise that was negotiated by Senator Lankford and others in the Senate. I'm curious, Governor, if you were a senator, would you have supported that compromise? Because it would have had a bunch of the measures that you're talking about in it, right?
Well, I haven't looked at the legislation or what's in it or what's not. I know we had some Republicans that were supportive of it, some that were not. But look, the bottom line is that is passing the buck. For anybody who's trying to blame Republicans for this problem, I mean, look, there is broad dysfunction in Washington, D.C. There is no doubt about that. But that does not, keep the president from taking executive action, just like the previous president did, to secure the border. There's plenty of things that he can do. The American people would support him doing that. I guess the problem is the left is just going after him so hard, he won't do the right thing to secure our border, but he's going to pay the price politically if he does not.
In addition to that, or, on top of that, what can be done at the state and local level right now? I know this is a personal tragedy for you, this murder. You talk about your own daughter going to the University of Georgia, and obviously you're feeling it as so many people are around the country. What can you do? Are the discussions with the legislature in Georgia to be more stringent on your end, to have more cooperation maybe between the local authorities and federal authorities we talked about? What can be done on your side?
Yeah, well, I've talked to the Speaker of the House, and I know the Georgia State Senate. I mean, everybody's looking at this issue. There was actually a couple of bills that were being worked on. We have a 2-year cycle here, so they were being worked on last year and this session, even before this horrific crime happened in Athens. So, there's a renewed interest to see what we can further do. I think the biggest thing is making sure that we have local governments, local law enforcement that's willing to work and communicate with ICE and Homeland Security and state resources and others, so that we know who these people are. Right. Especially if people that are here illegally have committed crimes. I mean, we don't need to be letting them back out on the streets again. We need to be deporting them or detaining them so they're not creating more crime in our neighborhoods.
Well, it brings up this issue, what they call sanctuary cities, right? We talked a lot about it here in New York, and it's come up even in Georgia, this particular case. Here's a headline from a local article saying that Republicans slammed the Athens mayor, Athens, Georgia, for running a, quote, sanctuary city. But the city denies that. A number of Republican lawmakers claiming that Athens is a sanctuary city, but it's actually a sanctuary county, Clark County. So it gets all confused, in terms of how you specify which is which, and then at the end of the day, nobody talks. The next person's not talking to who they're supposed to be talking to or reporting the information. So what about in your state? What can be done there to clear all that up, if anything?
Well, we have laws on the books. I would tell you that the members of the General Assembly and my team are looking at a lot of those issues right now. So we're still in a fact-gathering mode, and we'll be addressing that during the rest of the legislation.
Thanks so much for watching. Just go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.